There are parts of this that are truly wilderness that have yet to be developed.
That's
and
awesome,
may
though.
not be developed for many years, but 1,310 acres is a lot of room.
What makes us unique from other ag ed programs is that we are 100% residential. So our students live here on campus just like they would at a college campus.
I'm a representative, and that's nothing to do with ag, but strictly because I went here, I was open up to that opportunity. I've had chances to go to the interview senators, representatives, legislators, staffers. That's exactly what I want to do.
Last semester, I was in Real World. Real World was like class just for seniors to like learn real world experiences, like learn how to do taxes.
And I said, and that's okay for us to try stuff, and if it doesn't work, we try something else. So I use a lot of analogy doing things, but we try to make constant improvements, and we'll reflect on what worked, what didn't work, and go from there.
It's an old Irish spelling, but Dr. Tim Cowan, yes.
Dr. Tim Cowan. And you are the president of the one and only school in the country that is doing this really amazing program. Please tell me, in your words, what you have going on here.
Yeah, so the South Carolina Government School for Agriculture was established in 2020, and I always tell a joke that we couldn't have picked a better time to open up a residential school in the middle of a pandemic, but we were successful in that. So we're located on 1,310 acres. We have roughly 700 acres of forestry land, roughly 200 acres of pasture land, and the remainder is either campus land or row crop research area. We also, right behind you, we have a pecan orchard. We also do fruit and vegetable production. What makes us unique from other ag ed programs is that we are 100% residential.
Wow.
So our students live here on campus just like they would at a college campus. And so,
But it's a high school.
it is a high school.
So is that freshman to senior?
Only 10 through 12. We don't accept freshmen quite yet. There might be a maturity level there that we're not ready to tackle, but 10th through 12th grade are welcome here, and the majority are South Carolinians. We do have at least 10% of our student population can come from out of state. Students from Georgia, which is obviously very close, North Carolina, and we've also had one from Florida. And so
you're still pretty regional.
Very regional, yeah.
Why only 10% out of state?
Because it's a tuition-free program. So our state General Assembly provides, it's kind of like a scholarship for every one of these students.
Wow.
We have 3 governor schools in South Carolina, one for the arts and humanities, one for math and science, and we were established for agriculture, forestry, and natural resources.
Wow.
Which is the state's largest industry. Agriculture in South Carolina is a $52 billion impact.
Yeah.
We're a small state, so those dollars matter.
Yeah.
And so this school is kind of the General Assembly of South Carolina's way of getting ahead of the aging age of farmers, which is roughly 59 years old now, which is kind of scary because I like to eat, and I think everyone does. So this is kind of the way to get those students who are heavily interested in ag and forestry and natural resources established earlier, to hopefully bring that average age down to maybe closer to 50 by the time I'm 70. So
The students are obviously studying agriculture, but are they still doing like state requirement stuff like math and science and all those things?
Oh, yeah.
How is agriculture really embedded in your educational program?
That is a great question, and it's one of the questions that many of our future students or recruited students ask. They think it's just an ag school, right? No, it is. All of our core classes, math, science, English, social studies, are taught on the honors level. So it is a strenuous and rigorous
this
curriculum.
isn't go have fun cowboying.
No.
This is
strenuous.
This is schoolwork.
It is absolutely. We stress academics, and it's helpful in that many of our public colleges are even getting harder and harder to be accepted to, such as Clemson University, which is our land-grant university here, also SC State. So the honors level GPA is weighted heavier. So when our students graduate with a diploma here, they can reach past the 4.0, which looks better, of course, on college transcripts and applications.
So what kind of things do the students study here in addition to the core education pieces?
Yeah, so the core pieces, again, honors level, but we intertwine agriculture, forestry, and natural resources in all of our curriculum. A fine example, what better way or what better lab to teach biology than on a farm, a working farm.
Absolutely.
So we do biology labs outdoors. Many of our students are AI certified, And I don't mean artificial intelligence. So many of our students, when they leave here, have a working knowledge of cattle genetics. Being a cowman myself, I'm very passionate about livestock genetics, livestock reproduction. The biology piece is what's really exciting to me. We get into some physics on the farm. I mean, if you think about, we have a working sawmill here.
Wow.
And so our students are able in their forestry class to learn how to operate a sawmill. What better way to teach geometry, right, than building rafters and barn rafters? What better way to teach physics than load weight test on those rafters? So we try to bring the whole economy or the whole academics to where it's palatable for these students. And I hate to say this, but it's almost like tricking them to learn something they normally wouldn't be interested in. And I don't have to tell an ag person, you're an ag person, how passionate ag people are about agriculture.
Yeah.
And so our students share that same passion. It's really cool to see them. We have, I didn't mention our ag pathways, but we do offer plant animal systems. And so that group of students, they're of course passionate about what I would consider traditional row crop and livestock ag production. Then the natural resources pathway, those are passionate about wildlife management, forestry, which are also obviously important to the environment and agriculture in general. So you got those groups of students. And the ag mechanics piece. I don't know a farmer out there that doesn't need a full-time mechanic every day.
A good one.
Okay, those are hard to find.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about here, they can come out making a great salary without a ton of college tuition and go right with John Deere or Case or whoever needing those mechanics. And then the last one, of course, is horticulture. We focus heavily on greenhouse production, landscape technology. All of those are big industries in South Carolina with our golf courses. So those are the 4 major pathways that we offer, and it's just fun to see how passionate every kid is about their particular area of interest.
Absolutely. Is it like they're majoring like you would at a college? Like they already have a focus that they want to be into? Can they go across all areas if they want like more information? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they come to us in 10th grade, it is possible that they can be a completer in all 4 pathways.
Okay.
They could. Most of our students, the majority, come to us in 11th grade. We have a few that come in 12th grade. And so for them to complete all 4 pathways would be pretty tough, right? Mathematically.
Yeah. Right.
But if they come in 10th, they can do all 4 pathways. The majority of our students complete at least 2.
Okay.
At least 2. Mm-hmm.
How many students do you have on campus?
We have 78 students currently.
Total.
Okay. I know that sounds like a small number. We are only
I came from a small school.
We're only in our 4th year, and in the background, and you'll probably see some more today, we have an old campus that had a lot of aging infrastructure, aging dorm space, and we're renovating.
Because what was this beforehand?
So it started 227 years ago, and it served as South Carolina's home for maybe orphan children or children who needed somewhere safe to go and needed a good education. And this place was South Carolina's gift back to those children. Wow. And so our alumni base is unbelievable, and they love this place. This was hallowed ground to them. And so up until the shift to the Governor's School for Agriculture in 2020, there were some needed changes legislatively that needed to happen for this school to remain productive. A lot of the orphan children, with the increase of foster parent systems and alternative schools, that kind of thing, took the need of that away from our state. So you had this beautiful campus. What better thing to do with it than create a Governor's School for Agriculture?
Absolutely. That's so cool. What are your most challenging pieces of running such a unique school? I mean, you're one of one. You can't just go get a SOP from somewhere else and do it like they do.
Yeah, that exactly what you just said. You answered my question. There is no other school like this that when we approach. I got to be funny. I got to tell a funny story.
Okay, I love storytelling.
All right, so that's
why I do this.
This question that you asked when after work I go visit with other school administrators. Like, what did y'all have to deal with today? And some guys will be like, we had 2 fights at the lunchroom and we did all this. I said, we had a goat get out today. or my favorite, we had a skunk get into the HVAC unit. So those
that's the worst place for a skunk to go.
So that's the type of things that pop up that, on a daily basis that's sometimes seems stressful, but not really, not in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
We have almost 0 discipline issues. Our kids want to be here. And
they worked hard to get here. They're probably already academically achieving in wherever school they're at before.
They are. So, as far as difficulty, I would say managing managing our staff and faculty, managing relationships and building relationships with our General Assembly. There's 170 in our General Assembly in South Carolina, 46 senators, 124 House representatives. So we want all of their support because we are a state-funded school. We don't receive federal funds. We don't receive a local tax base like a typical high school district. Okay. So that's probably the most difficult, but at the same time, it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, maintaining those relationships and getting people out here just like you to this property to see this beautiful place and show the world what we're doing here in rural South Carolina.
Do you see any other states trying to do the same, or are they still like, you're still in guinea pig phase,
Yeah.
like we're just gonna let you work it out?
I have talked to many colleagues, especially in Georgia, some in Kentucky, and believe it or not, we had a visitor here from the state of Hawaii.
Wow.
Yeah, and Hawaii, to my knowledge, I didn't realize this at the time, is a huge ag state.
Yeah, they are. Isn't it amazing?
And he was telling me some stuff. He was like, we really need this there because our agriculture industry is the same way, aging population, people not necessarily wanting to go into the workforce. So yeah, we've talked to several different states that are eyeballing us, I think, and
That's really cool.
and kind of seeing, like you said, the guinea pig stage. Last year I told people we were still a toddler, right? And you know, age 3, so we're in our 4th year, so we're walking pretty good now as an organization.
Starting to talk a little bit better.
So we're putting together what I consider like the icing on the cake type stuff now.
Okay.
We're adding things that help our academics, such as we are now the home for the South Carolina Heritage Corridor Museum, which is an agricultural museum. Simple things like that. We've added a podcast, we've added a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Things that's not a typical normal school district are not able to do, or maybe sometimes financially able to do.
Yeah.
But we have the space and the buildings, and we want to be a resource for every school district in the state and a partner school, not necessarily in competition, if that makes sense. We host field trips all the time from kindergarten to grade 8. We'll do high school as well. Of course, we are at high school.
Right.
So we want this property to be used by all South Carolinians. If you're a teacher anywhere in the state and you want us to develop a field trip for your classroom, our state standards, we have an email address online, our contact email.
We'll put all links in the description.
Yeah, and we can do that for you. And
Okay.
we want this campus to be used for everyone here in the great state of South Carolina.
Where did you come from? And you're a cattle guy by heart. So what's your background in all of this?
Yeah, so I grew up about 35 minutes north of here in LA, Lower Anderson County, a small town of Iva, South Carolina.
Okay, I was just there.
Were you
literally
really?
on Monday.
Yeah, well, that's my town.
Very cool.
Honk the horn, if you honk the horn, you've missed it already.
Yeah.
Small town atmosphere, grew up on a small farm, livestock farm. My dad grew up on a cotton farm, and over time, the upstate of South Carolina got out of cotton and got into livestock. And my dad was born in a huge ag family. He was one of 10 kids.
Wow.
And his mom, my grandmother, I always used to say that she had 10 kids because she had the world's first 10-row cotton picker. That was her joke. Just grew up in agriculture and grew up around, I just fell in love with it at a young age.
Yeah.
I knew that I probably at the time didn't have enough family land to go into production ag, and my dream was to become an ag teacher. So
Okay.
I was very involved at Crescent High School, FFA. Decided in 11th grade to become an ag teacher, and had two of the best ag teachers a young man could ask
They'll
for.
make you, won't they?
They will.
Yeah.
And they pushed me, and I'm a first-generation college student. So
Wow.
I applied to Clemson and was able to get in. I don't know how. We won't visit that, but had a great experience at Clemson, decided to get a master's, and into my adult life as I was teaching ag. I taught ag for 8 years and then went back to Clemson for state staff for ag education and worked there for 5 years.
Wow, okay.
During that time, I began working on a PhD, and that was more of a personal goal,
Yeah.
just to prove to myself that I could do it, because again, my
First generation degree holder wasn't enough for you.
yeah, it was just like I was chomping at the bits to get something
I love it.
a little bit else, and was able to graduate with that back in May. Personally, I have a livestock farm at home, 176 acres. I graze mostly Black Angus, and I think you're a Pole Hereford fan from what I remember.
Yeah.
I have 1 or 2 older girls in my herd that
Can't beat a Hereford mama. You just
that
can't.
They're good mamas, but they sure do make pretty black baldy babies.
They do.
So I still have at least 2 or 3 of those girls at home, and so I just infatuated really with the beef industry. I don't think you ever get super wealthy at it, but the wealth comes in experiences, and the wealth comes with what my daughter is able to experience on our farm. That's what means the most to me. So
Yeah.
she will take those memories, just like I took memories when I was a kid, with her the rest of her life, and just have an appreciation for agriculture in general. So the farm life is kind of the life for me, right? It was that green acres. So it's just, in this place suited me perfectly because I love South Carolina history, which this place is full of, 227 years of history.
Yeah.
And then agriculture, of course.
Yeah.
So it kind of mixes both of those.
Isn't it so interesting? I always find this, that no matter what path you set out on, there's just so many bends and turns and things happen that you had no idea. I mean, in 11th grade, when you wanted to be an ag teacher, you probably saw yourself sitting in the back of an old, dusty, cold classroom for the next 40 years, and you'd be yelling at those kids just like your ag teacher was. But now here you are running the only of its kind agricultural school. That must feel like, I don't know, how does that feel? I don't have words for that.
Well, I don't know if I have words for that. You kind of took the words from me, but I guess I've never really thought of it that way, but now that you say it, I mean, it's a, first of all, I'm very humbled to have this job, just the history here, and coupled with agriculture. So how does it make me feel? I mean, it makes me feel really good, number one. I love this place. I love these kids. I love the people we work with. Mr. Ballman that set this trip up. Couldn't ask for better staff, faculty, students, and, give a shout out to my ag teachers. They did shout at me a lot.
I think all ag teachers do. Ag teachers and band teachers, I think they're all the same.
So yeah, I think when I first went to Clemson, I thought that exactly what you said, to be the 40-year guy. Right there at Crescent High School, I went to teach back at my alma mater high school. I loved my job. The opportunity came at Clemson. Took a lot of prayers, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And that was my chance at Clemson to, have some influence over other ag chapters, because we had a really good run of success at Crescent High School where I was teaching. I never in a million years would have thought I'd ended up here, because this place was not even a reality.
Literally the only of its kind.
At that point. And so the discussions came in 2019 when I was working for Clemson to establish this. And so I really became interested then, and as they say, just snowball kept going, and I ended up here and helped write the curriculum that we have now. I helped recruit students, helped recruit teachers, faculty. We had to start all over. We had to renovate all these buildings, and so
it's a lot of infrastructure. I mean, not just physical infrastructure, but I mean faculty, staff.
Yes.
Students.
Rebranding, if you think about marketing,
Yeah.
I mean, you're on YouTube, you get it.
Yeah.
The branding piece, the marketing piece, to attract that different type of student. The school for 222 years had served a certain group of students, right? And so to attract that, the students that we have now, it took a lot of marketing research and branding research. So that I've been able to have my hands in every facet of this place in the last 5 years.
Well, that's kind of like any business startup, right? Like the CEO kind of does every job for the first 5-6 years or so until things are off the ground and you can really kind of start delegating things. That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is like, especially right there at the beginning, we dealt with the pandemic for 3 years?
Oh, yeah.
And so
what better time to start a school?
I became working really closely with our DHEC here in South Carolina. So I learned a lot of health issues. So there's a lot of things like that I never would have thought I would have had my hands in.
As the president, from the president's perspective, what are your next steps? Where's the school going? What's going next here?
Yep, so our 5-year plan, strategic plan, we have requested a meats lab. So that's,
that's so cool.
So we want our students to become, one of our main goals here is to become 50% self-sustainable, meaning that we grow at least 50% of the food that we consume in our cafeteria every day.
Wow.
If I had to guess right now, we're probably around 20%.
That's awesome.
We eat our own beef, we eat our own pork, lots of our own produce. We eat our own lettuce every day. We have hydroponic towers, and if you've ever grown hydroponic lettuce, it grows really fast.
Really fast.
So we eat our own lettuce every day. So the meats lab idea came from the overarching vision to be 50% self-sustainable. We said 50% because that's attainable. SMART goals, if you remember
Yep.
SMART goals, 100% in South Carolina is not going to be attainable,
Right.
just because of growing seasons. We're roughly a 280 day, a 260, 280, depending on what part of the state. So we think 50% is very reachable. So the meats laboratory, I've requested that from our General Assembly. We have a lot of backing from folks in the General Assembly. We are, as a state, kind of a desert for meat processors.
Yeah.
So a lot of our livestock guys are taking their own animals to the state of Georgia, or sparsely the ones in South Carolina. And we appreciate the ones in South Carolina that we do have. Our goal to build one here is to educate our young folks that they can enter that industry, make a good salary, maybe not with a ton of student debt after, college debt, and then also to serve those livestock producers within our region, so we can become a hub and less of a desert for those guys.
That's really
And
cool.
quick math on some of those, on your livestock producers, you can take an animal that might be worth $1,500-$1,600 at the sale now, and prices are up, by the way.
Right.
So that's kind of fun right now as a cow guy. But that same animal processed and sold at retail might be worth $4,000.
Yeah.
So it pretty quick math, that would put that money back in that farmer's pocket, and it's already a tough market to make a living in livestock. But
Right.
our goal is to help South Carolinians and then educate our students, which will also put meat back in our cafeteria
Absolutely.
to reach our sustainability. Student numbers, as far as goals,
Yeah.
our 5 to 10 year goal too for student growth. Again, we're at 78 now. When those buildings are renovated, we should be around 100. And then if we still have a waiting list, which I'm 98% sure that we will look into building additional dorm space, probably a cap out around 160 students.
Okay.
That's kinda
Between
what we
3
feel.
grades.
Between 3 grades.
Very
Yep.
cool. When you said that, it made me think, do the students earn any kind of like dual credit for college?
They do. As a matter of fact, we had 2 of our alumni here this morning that stopped by unexpectedly on their college spring break,
Okay.
which is kind of cool to see our graduates come back during
Yeah.
their spring break. And both of those, one of the things that they said to us this morning is how this school prepared them for college, socially, mentally, academically. They're way ahead of college classmates because they lived here.
Yeah.
They
already have that homesickness away.
got it.
My freshman year at Purdue was terrible.
Miserable.
I called my mom every single night at like 2 in the morning. I want to come home. She's like, you can't come home.
You can't go
I
home.
want to come home. You can't come home.
So they mentioned all that, but the one thing that stood out to me was the dual credits that they earned here. They got their English 101, 102 out of the way.
Oh, nice.
Maths, introductory math 102, 101, 102.
Kind of the boring
Some
crap.
did chemistry, some did biology.
Yeah.
But so when they got to Clemson, or one young man's at the Citadel, that GPA starts over at college. So they were able to keep their GPA at a higher level than maybe normal
Yeah.
at the college level, because they had those tough classes out of the way here. I shout out to Piedmont Tech, who is our partner college within our region that we do our dual enrollments with.
You are Tony,
Right?
and you are, what is your job title?
I'm the public information officer and archivist. So I get to sort of help tell the story of what we do, and I also get the chance to kind of preserve part of 227 years of history on this campus, because the original vision goes all the way back to Dr. Delahow in 1797.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So you're kind of like the little historian.
I'm the little historian. Very little, not so little
Not
historian,
physically.
but that's kind of my job. I'm the guy that sort of helps keep our story, tell our story, and continue to make sure that our story is preserved.
That's awesome. So your job is to give people like me the president's show and just kind of show me around, chauffeur me around.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's a lot of, 1,310 acres. That's
a lot.
That's a lot to see. And there's parts of it
Yeah.
we can't even access in a Dodge
minivan.
in a minivan. So, there are parts of this that are truly wilderness that that have yet to be developed.
That's
and
awesome,
may
though.
not be developed for many years. 1,310 acres is a lot of room, a lot of elbow room.
Uh-huh.
From our show barns, obviously this is where we start moving deep into the 1,310 acres, because it goes all the way back to the edge of Strom-Thurmond Lake, or Clark's Hill Lake, the Corps of Engineer Lake up here. And we actually have around 3 miles of shoreline that is largely undeveloped.
Wow.
But it's at the back part of our property here.
Okay.
We have a Wilderness Education Center back here, where our outreach director does a number of workshops like wreath making, and she's got a collage class coming up next week. So we try to engage, we don't try, we succeed in engaging the community in here, bringing them onto this campus so they can see what goes on here and what a magnificent place this is. So we're actually transitioning into an area back here that it's one of the biggest draws to our enrollment. We have a stewardship forest, a tree farm back here, and right beside it is our equine center.
Okay.
And many of our students have their own horses and can bring their own horses to campus.
Oh, really? They can board them here?
They can board them
That's
here.
awesome.
Now we have limited capabilities.
Right.
We have only so many stalls, but we definitely encourage our equine students to bring their horses, to train their horses here, and the students take an active role in caring for the equine center as well as their own horses. As a matter of fact, a group of our students recently completed a project where they laid down new mats in the floor of our equine center to make it safer for the horses and to make it a much more conducive environment.
So I see students back in the wood. Are those students?
Yeah, these are students, and we actually have, that's Mr. Hunter Morton. Mr. Morton is he teaches our wildlife and forest management classes. They are cleaning up from we had a timber harvest here recently to open up some more pasture land so that we can grow some more food crops here. His classes routinely do control burns as wildfire prevention. It really teaches them many aspects of natural resources and wildlife management.
Absolutely, especially like if, say, someone like me, I grew up with basically just cattle. I didn't really grow up with a lot of woods, and so to be able to go to a school and know how to do a prescribed burn, I wouldn't know how to do a prescribed burn. I'm interested in them, but I have no idea how to do it. So how amazing is it that they get so many different dynamics and aspects of the whole world of agriculture instead of just being exposed to one single element?
It's not just row crop farming. It's
Right.
certainly not just livestock. I mean, we have those 4 pathways, and one of them is at natural resources and wildlife management. And what's so interesting about this is we're coming into an area of the campus called the Delahau Forest. And this, back in 1976, was designated by the Department of Interior as a national natural landmark.
Oh.
Because it is an old growth, stand of old growth trees. And so back in 76, the Department of Interior designated this section as a national landmark. Back deep into here are the remains of Dr. John Delahau's home. There are some rocks and things back there that represent where Dr. Delahau's home place was.
Wow.
And then at the end of this road rests the good doctor himself.
Oh, he's buried here.
Yes,
Very
Dr.
cool.
The tomb. That's why this is Tomb Road.
Okay.
It's called Tomb Road, and at the end of Tomb Road, right here where the blacktop ends, is the final resting place of Dr. Jean Delahau, whose will back in 1797, his last will and testament, bequeathed the land to the South Carolina Agricultural Society that would eventually become the John Delahau School, and now is the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture. But there
Very cool.
is the final resting place of Dr. John Delahau. That pedestal designates the National Natural Landmark.
Very cool.
And
Which one is his?
It's the
headstone?
large,
Oh, the tomb.
the large mausoleum.
So who else is buried here?
Reverend Branch, he was the superintendent of the Delahau School back at the turn of the century, when the mission of this became basically a state orphanage. Reverend Branch came in and his staff cared for the students as a part of the orphanage mission, and various members of the staff, people who have served over the years, who requested to be buried here, are buried here next to Dr. Delahau. And we actually have a house that is part of, it's called the Branch House. It was the residence of Reverend Branch, and it's right at our entrance, and It needs some repair. It needs some
Oh,
renovation.
that White House?
It's the White House.
Yeah.
It's the White House. And long-term plan is that would be eventually renovated and may become the future home of our agricultural museum.
Okay.
We recently acquired the collection of the agricultural museum that existed down at the Clemson Extension Research Center in Blackville. And all of those assets, all of those artifacts were relocated up here, and they're in our dairy barn now. But we acquired that collection, and we're preparing it now to open up to the community to tell the story of agriculture in South Carolina.
I mean, it blows my mind, as I think probably more so because I'm a millennial,
Right.
that in education you can have your core education pieces, your hands-on learning experiences, and your local history all in one place, and all is of proud value.
Of course.
I love that here.
And the thing about this place too is it's an asset for our entire community. May of this year, we are going to be the very first site for the South Carolina Ag Plus Art Tour. It is an annual event that's been going on, I think, 4 years now, presented by the Clemson Cooperative Extension Service. And basically it's a marriage of agriculture and the arts. And so our Governor's Green will be filled with people who artisans, crafters, musicians, and it'll be this melding of the arts and agriculture. And so our 12-acre Governor's Green, we envision it, and it has been because of our Ag Fest and other events, it's become a gathering place for the community. So the Ag Plus Art Tour is going to elevate that to the next level. Our education center, that's the place where we have the outreach programs, the community that come in and do the workshops. And it's multiple classrooms out here, deep in the woods. It's also an integral part of Mr. Morton's instructional space because he holds a lot of classes out there, and in addition to that, he has some aquaculture going on in one of the buildings.
We did that when I was in high school. That was awesome.
He has been growing some channel catfish as a part of that natural resources management thing. And this area also is the potential spot for our campgrounds and other areas where we will have access for folks to come and spend some time with us on the campus. So
I love that you guys aren't, when you think of like a private school, which is kind of like what this is, even though I guess it doesn't have the same money filters.
It's a public school, obviously,
right.
but
when you think of like living on campus and things like that, and extra learning, uniqueness, one of a kind type schools, you kind of think of privacy and hiddenness, and especially on 1,300 acres where half of it is wooded, you definitely think of privacy. But you guys are like, no, we want the community out here. Now I will say your security is amazing. They took our driver's license when we got to the gate. I'm sure they ran a quick background check, which I love. As a mother, I can't love that enough.
Well, when you have a residential high school, I mean, you have to take every precaution, particularly in this day and age.
Of course.
And our security team is fantastic. Our student resource officer, school resource officer is an incredible, first, an amazingly compassionate man. He has an incredible heart for the mission, but he also knows his stuff, and he knows how to protect this campus from the unfortunate 21st century threats that we experience, that education experiences. So
I just love how open you guys are about that. Why do you want to be so open?
Well, because we first of all, we're a public institution, but more than that, that is agriculture and agritourism specifically. That is the future, one of the futures of agriculture in South Carolina. Agritourism, because the two biggest industries in South Carolina are agriculture and tourism, and so when those two industries marry on projects that we do as outreach for this community, we are pouring into the two biggest industries in South Carolina. And so agritourism, opening this living classroom up to the entire state, is absolutely essential to our mission, because we're teaching our students that tourism and agriculture, they go together. We got members of our field trial team right there.
Okay.
And inside that building is Mr. Morton's aquaculture project, where he's growing the channel catfish. And this is our education center, where we have periodic Thursday night workshop. Our outreach director brings folks in to do all sorts of crafts, and it's a beautiful spot out here, literally next to the lake. Right down that hill is the shoreline of Stromtherma Lake. So
very cool. The education center though is just so interesting to me. Do you have a community demand of wanting to come out and see this place and know what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. Our recently, I think it was just this week and the last week, the members of the McCormick County Council came out and did a retreat at our education center.
Wow.
And we have various organizations like Farm Bureau. In the summer, as a matter of fact, we host a number of summer camps. South Carolina State University has a discovery camp that comes in over the summer. Farm Bureau, South Carolina Farm Bureau has its leadership camp that comes out every year.
Wow.
And a number of students spend time. So yes, absolutely. There's a need in the community, and further, we are going to further meet that need when Delahowe Hall, which is kind of the central building on our campus, right at the center of our Governor's Green, it's about to go through renovation, and one of the key elements of that building is a 275-seat auditorium.
Wow.
And it will be the only one of its kind in McCormick County, and it's going to open up so many more cultural opportunities for this community that our campus will be able to host concerts and theatrical events and lectures and that sort of thing at a 275-seat auditorium. This place is evolving, and that's the thing, because agriculture evolves. You know, the weather conditions will be very different tomorrow than they were yesterday. You know, drought and all of these different aspects of agriculture. That's part of the reason why the mission has to evolve, and part of the reason why our instructional program has to evolve, and it's part of the reason why the campus is evolving in the way that it is, because we're keeping up with the needs and the trends in agriculture, and we're preparing those future leaders of agriculture to segue out of this high school experience and be relevant in the world of agriculture.
How did you get here? What's your background?
Golly, I spent 36 years as a newspaperman and a broadcaster.
So you are a storyteller.
I have been a storyteller pretty much all of my adult life. At the middle of the things changed in the middle of the pandemic, and I had a mission reset. You know, I took a real honest look at the state of journalism, and I said, I'm not sure my conscience will let me be a part of this polarization and this divide that has, in my estimation, infected journalism.
Yeah.
And so I started looking for a mission where I could serve a higher calling, and this opportunity opened up, and I said, yeah, I want to come tell the story of this amazing place. And initially I started work here as an RA. I was the live-in caregiver for, and again, I'm not a dad. I've never been a dad, never been married. So and then all of a sudden I found myself in a house full of 8 teenagers. So I'm like, teenage guys, and I went, okay.
That's rowdy.
I have just jumped into the deep end of the pool here. And I spent years in RA, and then the opportunity opened up to be the resident storyteller. I jumped at it.
Yeah.
You know, and it was right back to the mission that I've always had in my life, and that was to be a storyteller. But the difference is I get to tell amazing stories about amazing students and an amazing place. So I get up every morning. My dog wakes me up at 5:15, and I'm like, wow, I get to go to campus. Yeah. It's not I have to go to campus. It's I get to go to campus, and I get to tell stories about amazing students in an incredible place.
So you are Eric McCall, and you are the farm manager here. Is that right? What How do you manage a farm that's also being managed by a bunch of little kids? I shouldn't say little kids, by a bunch of teenagers.
Wow, I mean, like you hit on the hardest part of my job.
It's
right
gotta
away.
be.
So the way I looked at it when I first hired on, because my background is in farming and in construction. I own a construction business for 25 years, owned and operated that, as well as a habitat modification business. I worked for government entities. So I had a little bit of experience, managing things that are not exactly cut and dry. But when I came here, that's probably one of the hardest parts we're trying to teach agriculture. So along with teaching comes making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
That's just an inherent part of it. And so let's say I put a student on a piece of equipment and they've never really operated that piece of equipment before. I kind of go into it knowing that the end result is not going to be exactly perfect. And so over time, I've kind of developed a strategy where I have this overarching idea of where we need to be, like in our 5-year plan. I kind of know where I want to be in 5 years, but I've learned to pace ourselves as far as our farm crew and our staff. We have to pace ourselves, and when we go into a project, we know that our top priority is to teach young people, and the second priority is to complete it in a timely manner if possible. But we always want to focus on a high quality end result, because the years I spent in business, I never really had to advertise, but I let my work speak for itself. And so I like to bring that train of thought into what I'm trying to help teach our student, is that you focus on quality and everything else will kind of fall into place. So that's kind of the strategy of it.
That is a very patient and open-minded mindset. And I don't mean this rude in any way, shape, or form, but farm managers, myself have been there and included, tend to be very line-oriented.
Yes, very linear.
Very linear. This is the job, do it right or don't do it at all.
Exactly.
How did you decide that needed to be changed? Did something happen while you were here? Was it beforehand? What happened? How did you decide that?
In my life, I've hired a lot of young people, and I've had the opportunity to help train and develop young people. Mm-hmm. In construction, it's kind of the nature of construction is that the young people with the physical ability to do the physical nature of the work are the kind of people that your company attracts, as entry level especially. Over time, I've learned to invest time in teaching, and that you reap the rewards of that on the back end. So when I came here, and I'm tasked with all these things like becoming 50% sustainable within the first couple of years. That was a big goal.
Yeah, we heard that earlier.
And I mean, if you've ever attempted sustainability, you know that if you really sit down and pencil and paper that out, that's a lot of stuff.
That is.
It's a lot to take in, it's a lot to do, there's a lot of moving pieces. But I guess I said all that to say this, is I sat down and I developed a list of priorities. What are my priorities in my role here? And it's apparent to me that the first priority has to be to teach. We're the Governor's School for Agriculture. We teach young people. Not just about one particular discipline, about multiple disciplines. I kind of decided to go about it with that approach, that's going to be my primary focus. And if I take my eyes off of that, I will get distracted, because I have a very linear tendency. If I set out to do a job, I can have a laser focus until I get it done. Kind of had to retrain my brain a lot of ways to be able to accommodate the learning process. But at the same time, it's been good. It has taken time, and I'm still working on it. But you start to see the benefits of that approach when you have students who have graduated and come back and you say, hey, where are you, what are you doing right now? And they tell you where they are in life. And some of the experiences that you've been able to offer them have helped them gain traction moving forward. So when you start to have benefits like that start to come back in, then it helps you say, okay, my plan of attack is actually working.
Have you been here since they started?
No, I have not. Ironically enough, I'm approaching 2 years that I've been here, so really only one graduating class that's kind of has left here since I started. But I kind of say that in a way because some of that has happened to me in my life in business before, where I've got a few young men especially that have came and worked for me in the past, and now I can see how they've progressed in life. And it's a rewarding experience to know you played a small part.
How are you managing that? I know you talked about patience and, you know, your primary objective is teaching, but from an agricultural perspective, how are you trying to, how do you manage that?
Well, one of my favorite sayings is that you know how you eat an elephant, don't you?
How's that?
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's simple, it's an oversimplification of the process, but I think a lot of what I do is just try to focus on one thing and do it well. And when I've achieved that, then I broaden my focus a little bit more, or either I focus on something else. One thing about agriculture, I think about where these students are going to go. If they leave here, they continue their education, eventually one day, several of them will probably want to purchase their own farm. And if you've ever purchased a farm, very few of us are able to go out and buy a farm that's just completely ready to go, right?
Yeah.
Usually, if you're like me, you buy a piece of land, it requires doing all kind of things to get that to the point where you're actually an enterprise. So I take that approach here. There's a lot of things. We have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be developed. We have just a lot of projects that need to happen so that we can become the farm that we want to be. And I try to roll those experiences the students into those experiences, because one day they're going to need to know how to do these things.
That's true.
If they haven't been taught how to already. I just try to make it all, as we're growing, we're able to teach young people how to grow on their own when they leave here.
Do you find that the majority of students who leave here end up having their own farm, or are they going into a professional career?
So I would say, honestly, right now, we're not old enough to really know, because a lot of our students that have graduated, they're still in continuing their education. That's the stage of life where they are now. But I do know that some of those students will go on to have an agricultural enterprise of their own.
Even if they don't go on to have their own farm, I hear, I guess, from people in the corporate world. I worked at a bank for a little while, and they're like, oh yeah, I worked on a dude ranch for a few years, best years of my life, or best summer of my life. And they get to use the experiences that they had on in those types of situations for the rest of their life. And you're able to facilitate those. So do you, other than being the farm manager, do you teach any classes here?
So no, basically we have 4 really great ag teachers who are certified agricultural teachers. They teach the classes that are directly related to the pathways. What my staff and I do is we sometimes teach, but we generally accommodate the lab times. So we'll set all that stuff up. We'll prepare the subjects a lot of time. We'll have the animals ready. We'll do whatever to get the students out of the classroom and involved. So really most of the teaching that I do is like in a real life situation, you know. Right now we're clearing land. We harvested some timber that's on beyond the other side of that hay field. I'll bring kids out, I'll show them how to run a piece of equipment, I'll stay with them, kind of help coach them as they're operating pieces of equipment. I mentioned the hay field. I do the same thing with cutting and making hay. We do that with growing cereal grains and crops.
That's really interesting to me. When we were driving down earlier, right before we got to you, we saw some kids out in the forest clearing some land, clearing some brush. And that's not part of class necessarily, right? Like, is that considered a lab? Is that an extracurricular? How does that work as far as like a student's schedule? Because you think of, this is still technically a public school. You think about school hours, sitting at a desk from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I mean, it's noon and you've got kids outside working. How does their schedule work like that?
Well, so you got the 4 agricultural pathways that are available here. So the ag teachers, during that ag class time, a lot of times they'll bring their kids out and they'll work. So you catch it on that side. Like you probably saw Mr. Morton and his group, they're preparing to do a prescribed burn on the pine trees.
Okay.
So we've been the last couple of days been working on putting in the fire breaks. So that's probably what he was doing.
Okay.
If you was here, a couple hours earlier, you just saw Mr. Abrams and his group on the excavators, running the dump truck and the bulldozers, helping clear up land, hauling stumps, and we're actually burning piles and stuff
So that's
today.
part of ag class.
To some degree, yes, ma'am. Now they spend plenty of time in the classroom. As part of their curriculum, they come out during class time. And then we have sometimes, like, let's say when it's time to process baby piglets, we'll have the class come out for the entire period.
And I should say, you mean process by giving them shots, castrating them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I'm sorry. That's a good thing to
Yeah,
kind
you're
of
fine.
clarify.
This is why it's good that I have an ag background,
That's
because I
right.
can clarify these things.
Yes, yeah, that's right. The process in terms of getting them ready to grow in life. Yeah, shots and all that stuff. So we'll have a lab. All the kids will come out and we'll have them gathered around. We'll demonstrate it and then allow the students to do it themselves. So we do that with calves, piglets, baby goats. All of our neonatal processing is what will involve them in labs. And then sometimes, like right now, I have a group of guys who are working on a combine
Okay.
down at the shop. Mr. Carls, he came by a while ago, dropped in. He'll be down at the shop working on a piece of equipment, and I may have some students in there troubleshooting and helping take something apart, put it back together, fix it. So we kind of throw out there the whole gamut of farm operations.
Talked about your background, but how did you really end up here? Like,
Well,
it seems like you really are just perfect for the job. Your demeanor, but I'm sure that you're organized being a business owner. How did you get here?
are you a religious person?
Somewhat, yeah.
Somewhat.
I'll say spiritual.
Spiritual. Well, I'm a Christian, and I feel like that very much I was put here for a reason.
Yeah.
Basically, I have been taught by my grandfather and my father to seek God's will in my life, and I feel like that's how I got here.
That's awesome. Being a spiritual person myself, I believe that, especially on a stewardship to the land.
Oh yeah.
When you
absolutely.
can foster and create and manage and sustain, and then grab young people and put them in it, and then they have the same ambitious ideas, it just makes the world go round in my eyes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stewardship is a huge part of farming. Sometimes farmers get a bad rap in terms of their impact on the environment, but nobody loves the land and loves the livestock, loves the wildlife, the air and the water more than the farmer.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to, that's how we make our living. To protect it, to propagate it, to leave it better than when we leave it than it was when we found it is kind of in our nature. It's just it's kind of programmed into us. It's a great way to live life, and it's a great thing to be able to share with the younger generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke with you a couple weeks ago for your podcast for the school, right? When we were here for Ag Fest. Remind me of your name again.
Asa.
Asa, that's right. So what year are you here?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior, and you're going to go to college for ag communication, right? And you're already accepted.
Yes.
You're going.
Yes.
That's awesome. Are you excited?
I'm very excited.
So when did you start going here? Because I spoke with Dr. Cowan earlier, and he said that they start at 10th grade. So what year did you start at when you were here?
This is my first year here.
This is your first year
Yeah.
as a senior.
Yes.
Okay, where did you go to school before?
I went to school in Estill High School.
Okay.
But I used to live in Gifford, so yeah.
Okay, where's that near?
Well, Gifford is it's in the low country, so like
Okay.
it's like 2.5 hours from here.
Okay.
So-
what brought you here? Why did you come here? What happened to say that you need to be a student here?
Actually, on FFA Legislative Day, I met Dr. Cowan with my old FFA advisor, and like that's when I kind of learned about the school. I was like, oh, this seems like a really good school. And considering that like my high school was combining with another one, and they weren't gonna have any ag programs, so I was just like, oh.
So you were already ag focused.
Yes.
Do you have a background in ag? Did you grow up on a farm or anything like that?
My family was kind of connected through ag of just growing like your own like vegetables.
Okay.
And
Like a
fruit.
house garden or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my great grandfather, we called him Papa. He used to have a couple trees and like a few bushes of like just fruits and stuff like that. And like he kind of cut those down to make room for just like other things to happen in the backyard. So I mean, we kind of had a semi focus in it, but not really that much.
That's awesome. What was your thought when you got here? Like, I think of me at freshman year at college. I'd never been away from home. I called my mom every single night freshman year, begging her to let me come home. So I can't imagine as a senior, I guess you're already preparing to go off to college, but you do it a year earlier. How has that transition been for you?
Well, considering like my small town, like there's just one stop sign and like no stores.
Yeah.
So I was kind of ready to leave. I was ready to go. I was ready to just like kind of go out and see the world. And considering like the amount of like experiences I've gotten just being here, I'm very happy that I came. Considering that there really wasn't that much of like focus in ag, kind of just at my regular school, I thought like this would be a good thing for me, considering that I did like find an interest in ag and like specifically like flowers and gardening and things like that.
So I'm curious to know from a student directly, what does your class schedule look like? Typically on like public schools or even I guess private schools, a class day or a school day looks like 8 to 3 inside on a desk working. But I see kids outside before the 8 to 3 or in between the 8 to 3. What does your class schedule look like?
Well, I do have regular classes. Actually, this semester I have more regular classes than last. This semester I only have greenhouse management as my like kind of ag class, and I mainly just in the greenhouse and like learning how to manage a greenhouse and everything. Last semester I was in real world. Real world was like it was a class just for seniors to like learn real world experiences, like learn how to do taxes. We went to like different places and stuff like that. That was a really fun class.
Typical public schools don't get that. That's really interesting.
It was a very different class because I mean we've had like at my old high school we did have like interesting classes, but it was really different. And then last semester I had floriculture, which was like my favorite class ever.
That's awesome. What did you do in horticulture?
It was mainly a focus on like learning like we started off with like the history of like flowers and arrangements and how people use them, and then we went on to learning how to make arrangements like potted or like handheld arrangements. We learned like we learned color theory as well. On top of that, we learned like geometric shapes to help better make arrangement look more appeasing and like just look nice.
Were you able to use those classes then and go outside much? Or like was there a lot of outside learning? You said this semester you're more inside. So like as a percentage, how much of your classwork was outside versus inside last semester?
Last semester like probably 50 to like 45%
was outside.
Yes.
That's awesome. Do you find that you learn better that way?
I learned better being able to just like walk kind of, I guess, considering there's not that many students here, you can like kind of learn more freely without like having to stick to like a certain type of like agenda of learning for just simple things. Yeah. I guess. In my American history class, we kind of learn like a little bit different with our history teacher.
How so?
I don't know. It's like he's kind of more lenient. It's more fun.
It's more about what you're interested in, not just a textbook.
Yeah, it's more engaging. Like although like we do take note, like we do have to take notes, but like it's kind of just more engaging and stuff like that.
You are another student here.
I am.
Jahira.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And what year are you?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior as well. What year did you start here?
I started my sophomore year, which was last year, and then I skipped my junior year.
How'd you skip your junior year?
Because I already had college credits from middle school, so I just went straight into my senior year.
Okay. And I hear that you're kind of like the smart girl on campus.
Who said that?
Yeah, I think everybody's saying that. And you're going to go to college and study what?
I'm going to college, and right now I'm doing national security and international relations.
How do you go from an agricultural school to doing that?
Because originally, in all honesty, I came here not with agriculture at all. I didn't come from a farm or anything. I came because it was during COVID, and at my public school, we didn't have any teachers. And I thought, hey, there's a governor's school opening up. They have to at least have teachers, honors classes, or a good education system. And that's why I came.
So you were here academically?
Purely academically.
Wow.
Yes.
Where are you from originally? You're
I'm from McCormick.
You're,
I live 13 minutes away.
So you didn't have to go far at all?
No, I'm a day student.
Okay, so you don't actually live on campus then.
I lived last year, and I'm a day student this year since I'm old enough to drive now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's really cool. But what about the agricultural side of it? This is an ag school. You don't have an ag background. You're not going into the ag field.
Not.
But you are getting a forefront look at an industry that you probably never would have known anything about.
Honestly.
How has that shaped you?
So my pathway is natural resources. And I honestly chose it because it sounded like it had the least to do with ag. It sounded like a managerial thing where you stay inside, but I was wrong. So
what was it again? Remind me.
Natural resources.
Natural resources. You just thought you'd be in an office all day.
That's what I thought. It sounded like paperwork. I was wrong. And I've actually done a lot of things like prescribed burns. I never knew that somebody could get paid to burn down the forest. I learned
you thought you were just going to jail for that. You're like, wait, that's a job? I thought people went to prison for that.
I had no idea. So we did prescribed burns. We managed wildlife. We've had to learn how to measure trees. And
You're like, I didn't know how to put a tape measure around a tree.
I have never done any of it. And my teacher, he was just so accommodating, especially since I didn't have any agricultural things. And he was like, you know what? I think you would be really good at public speaking. And I was like, about what? He's like, agriculture. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm your person, but he ended up getting me to do creed speaking for FFA, and I was a state champion last year.
Girl, that is amazing.
Yes, so even if you're not interested in ag, you still have so many pathways. Like I do stock markets,
that was your SAE project?
That was my SAE, and it had almost zero to do. It very much was research and paperwork. It's more like investing in agricultural markets, but it's definitely more managerial. It's not outside in like the sunlight.
Yeah. Dude, are you gonna be president one day? When you're president, I'm gonna need you to just be like, hey, if you ever wanna come and visit, you know, you can come on over.
God, I hope so.
I've talked with some people today that from like the time they were a kid, they knew exactly what they wanted to do. And this was kind of part of it. And you're like, I know exactly what I want to do. This place opened up and they'll help me do it.
Yes. So since I've been here, actually, I already demonstrated. I'm like, hey, I'm not really interested in ag. I'm not going into ag. And they're like, you know what, that's fine. Just see what you're into. And actually, this year there was an internship I got offered to intern. It was paid fully. It could have been through this summer or my entire bachelor's degree, where I'd be interning. I'm a representative, and that's nothing to do with ag, but strictly because I went here, I was open up to that opportunity. Wow. I've had chances to go to the interview senators, representatives, legislators, staffers. That's exactly what I want to do. It's nothing to do with ag per se, but just because I went here, it's opened that opportunity.
And even if you don't want a career in agriculture, the simple idea of knowing where your food comes from, which we all can agree that we're so removed from, you know things like prescribed burns.
Yeah.
And you know, how drought systems work and how to move water. And those are things that you might really actually need to know somewhere down the line, and it's going to be in your back pocket. So
yes, so definitely going into like a government job, I'd say you'd have to know a lot about different things no matter what it is. And agriculture is definitely the foundation of everything. From the clothes you wear, the international markets, the clothes you buy, anything is all based on ag. And I feel like this foundation is setting in my mind. It's like, okay, so I know this can happen because this is what's happening in the markets and this is what is happening to farmers, so I know that this can't happen. So I feel like it's given me a good foundation and it's opened a lot of doors, I'd have to say.
If there was anybody else in your position where they're like, I know nothing about ag, I don't need to know anything about ag, I just want to learn, would you advise them to maybe branch out a little bit, maybe join FFA and do a creed speech? I
would definitely advise, even if you're not interested in ag, definitely give it a chance, because even though it might not be your main priority, you can always do like the littlest thing. Like I promise you, opening up your mind to different opportunities is the basis of everything. And I feel like this school just has so many different opportunities, caveats, internships, anything can help, no matter what you're interested in, because everything deals with ag.
So you are the principal here, Principal Thompson.
Yes.
Look at me, I was trying to be sneaky and read it real fast and I failed. Principal Thompson. And you are over like the education piece of the school.
Yes.
So what is your background? What brings you here? Are you like just an educator background? Do you have an ag background? How did you get here?
Well, I have a educational background, and I kind of started a school up from my last district, and I was on the tail end of retiring, and I worked in South Carolina before, and I actually worked for the interim superintendent, and we've had a good working relationship. And when she introduced me to this project, I said I was interested in interviewing for this school, and fortunately I was able to get on the ground level working here. My ag background, I was principal at a school in South Carolina that had a huge ag program that introduced me to agriculture. And my parents are from South Carolina. My mom grew up in a farm in Banbury, Earhart, South Carolina.
Okay.
And my dad grew up in Orangeburg, South Carolina. He grew up picking cotton. So I always tell people I end up having an agricultural work ethic. And so one thing I realize about folks in agriculture, they have a strong work ethic. And so I think myself and Dr. Cowan was a good match because he had the huge ag background and I had the huge educational background, and that made for a good match as far as doing the groundwork on getting the school off the ground.
Yeah. So what has been like some of the struggles? You've been in education your whole life. This place basically brought you out of retirement, it sounds like. So it must have been cool enough to do that. But what are some of the struggles that you've seen being a principal at an ag school? Especially one of a kind. I mean, I talked with Dr. Cowan, it's not like you can just go to another school's SOP and be like, okay, this is what they did at this problem, we'll do that. What are some issues you have?
Well, we have what I call good problems. When I say we have good problems, it's about these kids have so many different opportunities, and I have to make sure we kind of balance and make sure they in class getting some schoolwork done, because the chances they get to travel and get to visit various farms and compete in various competitions, actually on the state level, regional level, and national level. And so throughout the school year, you want to allow them to have these opportunities, which they would not get at a regular school.
Right.
And then also we have just guest speakers come in and they get access to some of the experts in the field of agriculture. And then sometimes we have some folks that come in that do not have a strong agricultural background, but they have something that would be beneficial to these kids. It could be financial literacy. It could be on just making good lifetime decisions and things of that nature. It kind of helps us mold a well-rounded student when leaving here.
I know, like back in Indiana, they just changed it, I think a few years ago, that 4-H and FFA activities counted as an excused absence. So are absences structured differently around here since they can kind of be outside doing things?
We do structure them a little differently and excuse most of those absences, because one thing, we have access to the kids 24 hours when they stay here.
Right.
And so, and a lot of their seat time and things could be made up during lunch. They have a whole lunch period. We have what we call MIA, missing instructional assignments, where they have an opportunity to meet with those teachers during lunchtime. They'll take 30 minutes of their lunch and get called back up, or even after school. You know, one thing I tell the teachers, even if a kid's struggling, make them stay after school. I mean, they can't go nowhere.
It's not like their parents are going to come and pick them up.
Because the majority of them do live on campus.
Right.
We do have probably less than 10% live off campus, so we have access to them.
Yeah.
And going from there.
Yeah.
And then we do monitor the kids, weekly monitors, and we have what I call data talks with the teachers. We meet every Monday.
They're called what?
We call them data talks.
Data talk. Okay, so, like a data set. Okay.
And talk about some of the kids and some of the struggles they might have, and interventions we can put in place. That kind of helps out with the kids as well.
We'll say it out there, because I know that audiences are going to be thinking it. But when a kid lives on campus and they aren't an adult, there obviously are some, maybe risky things that they might get into that can get them in more trouble because they're not an adult. How do you handle instances like that? Or do you have them? I guess I should ask first, do you have instances like that?
We have problems just like everybody else. One of the things we screen the kids coming in, so we don't accept kids that have an extensive discipline record.
Yeah.
You know, some of them might have a few minor offenses, but so on the most part, they've been pretty good kids coming in. But good kids need supervision too, and so we try to provide as much supervision as possible. But you know, some of the kids do get into some type of development, and then we do have to levy some consequences. Unfortunately, it's been some kids that we've had to send home over the last couple of years, and hopefully they've landed on their feet. Some of them we've heard back from, and they got an opportunity to land on their feet. But and then some of them we deny them opportunity to go on a trip or anything like that. And some of the kids we've had to suspend and we've had to put on probation. But it's not a lot of them, though.
Yeah.
You know.
And with a small school, I mean, I feel like those instances as a percentage would be small anyway. Yeah.
It's pretty small.
Yeah. Well, I've talked about some negative things, but what is your favorite part about being here, or the part that brings you the most joy being here? I mean, this place brought you out of retirement.
Well, I think today has been a great example. Our kids are on spring break. The ones that graduated, most of them on spring break from college. And one of the things that I shared with the teachers that we've had 2 graduating classes. We had graduated. Our first class was 21. Our second class was 26. So we call them our product. you know, we produced a product, and our product is out there, and see how our product is doing. One thing I can say about our graduates, I think, if I had to be safe to say, we've had 90% of them probably have been back on this campus. So
they want to come back.
They want to come back, and so they come back in spring break. And so we had one young man that is currently at Winthrop College. He came back. He came back and met all the teachers. It was so great to see him. And then we had a young lady. She's come back. She's at Clemson. This young man came back from the Citadel, and he had his uniform on, and got a chance to address the faculty and staff at lunch, and all of them thanked us for getting them ready for college and the experience that they had here at the school, and that just made us feel real proud. They want to come back, and they appreciate us, and we're so glad to see them, and I think that's our product that's out there. Made us real proud.
That's awesome.
When you talked about addressing some problems they have, myself, my secretary, Ms. Lively, was right next door, and my guidance counselor on the other side, we try to make a habit to have our doors open, and sometimes they're going to come to somebody, and sometimes they might not come to me. They'll come to my secretary. They'll go to Miss Newton, or it's usually some adult on campus they've connected with and bonded with, and we try to keep those open. Avenues open for communication.
Well, that makes me think of a question too about hiring. Do you partake in some of the hiring processes for staff and faculty here?
For the teachers. For
the teachers, okay.
And, we have a couple of different departments like farm staff and maintenance and things of that nature.
So you help with the teachers
I just do
hiring.
Teachers.
Is there a specific criteria you're looking for from those teachers? Like, you didn't have an ag background, so obviously that's not necessarily a requirement, but is there something special that you like to see from your teachers that maybe you don't see from a typical public school?
In developing the staff, I really wanted to look at diversity a little bit. We, myself and Dr. Calvin, definitely talked about it prior to, because they gave us a year to staff the school and recruit the students. And I'd say we've done a good job with diversity. Our current staff right now goes from anywhere from a first-year teacher to somebody that's taught 34 years.
Wow.
And then we have some that at 16-year mark. And it's real funny watching them learn from each other. I think the younger teachers are teaching myself and some of the older people about technology and how to work with these new computers. And then I think the older people are just more of the pencil and paper and putting it on the wall, and so it makes a good mixture. Going from there. And then, of course, they get a regular high school diploma here, so we had to hire core teachers, getting our core teachers more involved with agriculture and some of their SAEs, the supervised ag experience projects, so that they get more exposure and tying in their lessons where they can actually apply what they learn in these core classes out there and in the ag world, and seeing how it all comes together. And we're seeing the results of it on our test. Our kids do real well on standardized skills tests.
Okay.
That's been one of our strengths when we
Wow.
see it. We also see it in our certifications. Our kids have obtained a lot of different various industry certifications. Real proud of that. And we encourage our kids to take the ASVAB test.
Okay.
Not pushing the military on them, just to see where they stack up. And usually the recruiter lights up when he sees the scores because they do real well. And that kind of helps us out with our state report card.
Because you're still graded by the state, because you are government funded, you are a public school.
Yeah, so, and all those counts towards points and see where we stack up with everybody else. And we do real well on the career and college ready, that portion of it.
That's awesome.
We work on improving every year, every year, just constant improvement.
Improvements how?
Well, one of the things that I did during pre-planning 2 years ago is I asked the teachers, I said, what is the most popular fast food hamburger place in America? And they all started looking, they said McDonald's. And I said, yes. And then I put up a menu from McDonald's from 1975. And I asked them, I said, well, what's the difference in the menu now and back in 75? Can you compare? What's the difference? And they read off all these differences from the drive-through, that they serve breakfast and the desserts and all the different things. They came with this long list. And so I was looking, I said, McDonald's is the top hamburger place because they improved every year.
Yeah.
And you got to make constant improvements, which we have done. And I said, and they're willing to try things. You know, I said, how many of y'all remember the McRib? And they looked and they said, no, yeah, I liked it. I didn't like it. It was mixed fit. And I said, and that's okay for us to try stuff and it doesn't work. You know, we try something else. So kind of, I use a lot of analogies on doing things, but we try to make constant improvements, and we'll reflect on what worked, what didn't work, and go from there. And we realize we got a lot of work to do in different areas of improvement, and we're not complacent and going from there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time and talking with me. I appreciate it. This has been an amazing experience, and I hope that we can share your story well. So thank you so very much. I appreciate it. So you have taken me on a whirlwind, and I have talked to teachers, faculty, farm managers, students, and this place is awesome. This place is so cool, and I am so thankful. I think it took a couple tries, but the fact that we were able to get together and you have me out here, I am so grateful for that, and I am so grateful to be able to share your story and just keep the message moving forward. So thank you.
This is a one-of-a-kind school. There is no question. There's not another one. There's not another one like this in America. The fact that we're in rural South Carolina, in the former colonial backcountry of South Carolina, in this historic hotbed, and we're on this beautiful 1,310-acre campus, and that every day the people you've met get to pour into the students that you met and pour into their lives and prepare them for the future. It's a privilege every day. It's not only do we get to drive onto this campus and see a magnificent sunrise over the pastures, but when the sun goes down and we go back to our homes, we know we've spent the day making an impact not just on the lives of young people, but making an impact on South Carolina and South Carolina agriculture. It's a sacred calling.
It really is. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate it.